No. No. Um,
There you go. Still, I don't know whether you can hear me. Can you hear us, Dean? It says Ahoy is driving to his folks.
well, our audio's on. Oh,
What? So that says Ahoy.
our audio's on.
So you're running it. You're also running YouTube in the background, no?
I've paused it now. It's someone, if anybody out there who's watching this knows how to, it is. No. It is.
What are the stars doing at the moment? This that felt pretty hectic. You can hear us 5 by 5. Yeah,
What does that mean?
he can hear us well.
Uh,
Good audio.
yeah, we're wanting to play music at the beginning and share the screen, but we haven't quite got it right yet.
No, maybe we need a bit more practice.
Yeah, we did say we'd practice when
We
we weren't
did,
doing it,
yeah.
and we did.
No.
So that's on us, really.
Yeah, that's on us. So we can raise our game a little bit. How's it going for you these interesting days? Things are happening so regularly. It's like week week to week. It'll be like, what? What? This has happened now? This has changed? Do you feel a bit like that?
Uh, yeah, it's incredible times.
Yeah.
I know uh, that from an energetic point of view, from the cosmology or astrology, it's there's some really significant energy around at the moment, and that being um, Neptune at 29 degrees, lots of Pisces energy. And Pisces is like completion, it's ending, it's the final, uh, uh, you know, aspect, the zodiac of the astrological cycle. And of course, Neptune's been in Pisces, although it's been in and out since 2011, I think. It likes being in Pisces. It's
big year for me, big year for us. 2011.
Exactly. And Neptune is like it's wanting us to be in our highest, most spiritual selves, or certainly it's wanting that oneness. It's wanting us to be not in separation, and it's also sort of the area of imagination, or alternatively illusion, and it wants to dissolve that. That's its role. Some astrologers say it's more powerful in that respect than Pluto. It is a generational or collective energy. It's not necessarily personal, although you can have very strong Neptune, and it obviously does affect you personally. But it's at 29 degrees, which is a final degree, and so there's a lot of completion going on in terms of our ego and our illusion. Obviously, it really depends on where it sits for you. So a lot of that sort of ending energy.
I've had a lot of technical issues this week. Oh my gosh. We went to Oxford on Tuesday, and got a great video, or some great videos of the old buildings there, and some good questions, and just some family footage. And then the next day, I made a 30-minute walking in the fields download of my thoughts and stuff, which I was pondering things like, what's the implosion in the flat Earth society or whatever. And I needed to edit it, and I couldn't save it on my phone to edit because I didn't have enough memory, and blah, 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 long story. We end up deleting all of the videos on my phone, like a whole month's worth of other stuff. And anyway, and then this evening, of course. So I don't know, maybe I should be ending my career as a something.
I think I talk about the Pisces energy, but actually we've also got Mercury and Venus in sort of dancing together at 10 degrees of Aries, and Mercury's just very shortly supposed to go into retrograde, so it'll be in the shadow. So yeah, there's incredible energy, and for me, it's like what is life showing me that still needs to be, what can I be responsible for? Because I can blame whoever I like for the things in my life, and it's not to say that people aren't, haven't got their own stuff that they need to be responsible for, but what is it showing me? And I'm really feeling that this week, the stuff that's coming up, it's showing what's still living in me. And it's one thing to have awareness around it. How can I really embody that? And so how can I lean in to what's present instead of, and I find myself trying to, because it's uncomfortable, trying to get away from it, or trying to distract myself from it. And that's a very Piscean thing, actually, is the escapism. Can I escape in something else?
And we in the truth community have got so many things to escape into. There's so much on offer. There's so many things to pull apart. So much fakery going on, and so much deception, and the leading of the people into their own entrapment, or further into the trap, because the trap has been sprung some time ago. But wow, are we walking ourselves into a whole interesting kind of new paradigm, and it's going to be wow. I I never thought, like the images of the 1980s Van Damme movies and Schwarzenegger, maybe not, um, those kind of total recall, not total recall, but it could be, oh, get my ass to Mars, Elon. But it would be like uh, with that one with RoboCop or something, or that kind of thing, where it's just like an automated system and controlled pretty much every which way controlled. Uh, that feels like it's being raced forward by the cheering MAGAs and so on. Um, so that's a real kind of place of distraction, as are all the other challenges of life, paying the bills and doing the 9 to 5. Um, I'm so grateful that I've not had to do the 9 to 5 for a few years now. It's probably more than 10 years since I did proper 9 to 5. But, um, to be stuck in the system and still and know what to be having to get on the train every day and do that slog and do a job that you don't really care about, but you have to do it because there's no other way to pay the bills and et cetera, et cetera. Wow, you know, that's, I think, is tough. But we can continue to evolve. I think I was thinking today that maybe evolution is partly true. Not that we come from fish that walked on land and then became, thumbs and head and all of that. No, but that we evolve. We're meant to evolve in this plane, in this place, in this school. We're meant to evolve from whatever level we are to the next level up or 2 levels up. I don't really have a gauge for that. It is just an evolution of the soul or the self or the salt. And we must allow for, or we must find ways to evolve the self more than trying to change the world out there. It's a tough one to say because obviously we don't like that the world is how it is. But if you've got pimples on your skin, you've got to change your diet. You don't need to keep washing your skin. I mean, you do maybe need to wash your skin, but you've got to attend to the stuff inside, as within, so without.
Well, and the world is in you. Yeah, the world is in you, and my work is that it's how the experiences we have is how the world appears to us. But I was just reading Dave something from a guy who I follow who's in the sort of healing modality, and he was talking about we're not in the age of information, we're in the age of integration. And that information and awareness is almost just like white noise if you haven't integrated it, and it isn't making your life better. And that AI is I've forgotten his words exactly, but uh, it's more about imagination and initiation and intuition, and that's the eyes, and it's all those technologies. That's what I believe our true technology is that ability to tap into something much greater than this human experience. And this goes back to what I was saying in the beginning about the energy. It's like that we're having this human experience, but we are that we're connected to something much greater.
There's no doubt we're connected to something much greater, in my opinion, in my experience. But the level to which we can access and are meant to access, because obviously there isn't a desire for me to feel the need to access God level power here. You know, the higher self of myself that I saw during the DMT in 2015 was this invincible, timeless being. And he had no need for ego here, you know, to be like the biggest nuclear power or any of those things, or the biggest jock in the you know, in the club, you know, has no need for these sort of human level interests and material, you know, concerns. So you know, I think you know, we don't necessarily need to have all of that. We need to access some of it, perhaps, but you know, it's. But I'm just trying to. I guess I'm just trying to offer like a balanced perspective on this idea that we are meant to, in this incarnation, in the material frame, achieve breatharianism or, you know, the communication without speaking, you know, these sorts of things. Maybe we are, but I also don't want to set us up to say, well, this is the bar that you have to achieve if you're to have made it here on this time round. I don't know that we need to set ourselves with these kind of, you know, but you end up getting towards people who want to be more Puritan, like, you know, the purer, you know, I can't eat any of this, I can't touch this, I can't do that, I can't do that, because in order for me to be pure, in order for me to be that, I have to be this thing. And I don't know that that thing is necessary.
But that's my point. We're both. So we are perfectly imperfect. This is a human experience, but we are a soul, spirit, an expression of God having a human experience, which is not meant to be perfect. In fact, you know, we are having a life experience, and I think for me, there is no doubt that I came here at this time to experience whatever is going on here, um, and to live this life and offer something as my service to others, for growth. That I see in astrology. It's very plain for me to see that blueprint.
I see a teacher in you. I think you're meant to be a teacher.
And then it's what you do with it, and that's free will. That's where we have free will. But you know, and this is difficult for people, and to say, well, that person that's struggling, they don't have the invitation. Yeah, they do. It's not for me to say what that is. It could be just simply, you know, caring for animals, or whatever it might be. The Puritan part, by the way, and I think this can be said for even truth community, is that it can often be a bypass.
Puritanism, yeah.
There is one thing, I'm not for a second saying this is about us connecting to our divinity, is we need to just be that. It's both. You've spoken so much over the years about the embodiment of that, and I think the heart is like the bridge. That's the bridge between heaven and earth, or spirit and this human incarnation. We're the conduit for it, and you know, I think love is that connection between the higher and the lower. But I also think that it's not about being all light and positive, and it's the dance of both. And it's the integration of both. It's like looking at all those parts that we want to disown, or that we look out there and go, that's bad. And it's about bringing those into the light and loving them, instead of disowning them. So it's so much more than just like becoming this pure, righteous. I'm, and hey, if your calling is to go and sit in a mountain and meditate, then if that lights your heart up, then go for it.
Might take a few months or a few years, but you got to do that thing.
But this is about the balance between the two. It's about being in the world, not of it, but also it's about being in this human experience and being, with the messy of that, but with authenticity and with knowing that, we can trust life. That if I backtrack a little bit, I know from my own belief systems and trauma that I have this belief that things don't work out, that I can't have the things I want. And that's from the experiences I've had, maybe even past life things that I've brought with me, karmic wounds that I've brought with me. But that part of my journey is to return to my heart, return to love, and to return to that expansiveness of that actually, that life wants it to work out. When I say life, I mean spirit, God, consciousness, whatever you feel comfortable with. That it wants me to feel joy. Does that mean I don't get to feel the counter to that, grief? No, that's part of this experience. But it actually wants this life to work out for me, and it's about being in flow of that. And it's the meaning that we attach to grief and sadness and anger, and that gets us stuck or gets us to avoid it all. So it's about it all. It's about those human experiences and the fact that we are these eternal, divine, expansive, magnificent beings. And being able to integrate and be in both that as one.
Yeah. And the program of materialism is so deep in the last few hundred years, in Victorianism, and I don't know about before that exactly what the history was, but it seems like the Victorian period is legit to an extent. And so the materialist mindset is so, and I'm speaking for myself here, but I feel like I'm, Joe Average. The materialist mindset is so inculcated or integrated or interwoven with your identity that even discerning that this realm has to be held together by some kind of electromagnetic kind of system, torus, whatever, and so it cannot be material. And this is what the DMT showed me as well, but it cannot be material. And if it's not material and it's ethereal and electromagnetic, then it is something so magnificent, that we struggle in the human form and the programming we have to really understand or understand the magnificence of that and the centrality of that, and that being the kind of source. Although obviously we're here in this material world, you're at Disneyland, so you're going to ride on the rides, and you're going to, do all the things of Disneyland in a way to enjoy your day there or whatever.
We'll get on with.
But yeah, there are strange men in the toilets, and they're going to cause you harm at a young age, and you're going to. Or for that, I'm just using one extreme example, but there's all sorts of things that are happening to us that are going to rob us of that insight. Whether it's meant to be like that or not is another conversation, but it is like that. And so the outcome is, do we stay in victimhood, keep staring at the door there in the latrine, or do we work through that? And
I think I actually wrote a post on Instagram this week about safety. And, when we experience trauma, and I'm talking about little trauma here, obviously some of us experience big trauma. And so there's a spectrum of that. And I truly believe that if we've experienced big trauma, we came here to experience also massive expansion or massive opportunity to be um, uh, um, to be medicine for others. But no matter whether it's little or big trauma, and little trauma can be so subtle, then what happens is the ego or the mind steps in, and it believes it's separate and it's unsafe, and it has to protect you and protect you from pain, protect you from heartbreak, protect you from the world out there. Because obviously when we're very little, the world is our parents, is our family unit. In fact, we're one nervous system for a very long time. And um, and then that's what happens. The way that we see the world is through that experience, and all the mechanisms to try and stop and seek and get somewhere to safety or to that utopia, because once we get there, then we'll be safe, and or that we just are just simply hyper vigilant all the time, surviving this experience rather than that actually um it's not necessarily unsafe. In fact in fact if I trust in this higher power, or that I am life itself, then everything is working out. And that doesn't mean I just surrender and sit down and go, oh, well, although your higher self was doing just that in the DMT experience, but that I can exhale, and I can trust, and I can surrender. And that's certainly in terms of the feminine. I know that the masculine role is the protector and the provider, and it has a different essence.
so we want the intel more, I think, and that's kind of understandable. But yeah, we do. Obviously, if we're constantly engaged in combat, and it can feel like that because at the end of the day, there is a clear and present threat to the world, you know, situation, then you can feel like you're always in the fight or flight kind of mind state, and your nervous system is
Mm.
therefore dysregulated,
Mm.
which may be why there's quite a high number of, truthers, deep truthers that, seemingly get ill. Um, so, and actually when I sort of, looking around at a lot of the truthers on average, I think that they are carrying a greater than average burden, perhaps, when it comes to things that have transpired, which is why there may be those people that are divergent and unwilling to toe the line.
Well, that's another beautiful thing about your natal chart, is that we've all come here for, our own specific purpose or experience. And some of us are more divergent than others, or have certain areas of our chart where we are here to, specifically at this time, we're here to try and up level or or bring about a high level of consciousness, whatever that might mean. And yeah, it's just about us coming back to that authenticity, and and being really curious about what is going on for us. I think that's curiosity is a really important thing, and an inward curiosity, not just obviously curious about what's going on out there. Um,
Well, going on out there is the chat room. There's a few guys saying hi. Alva Billy, nice to see you, and Dean and Voynich, ruled by Saturn. Lone Wolf says, I always tell myself everything always works out for me and I have everything I need. I like that positive affirmation thing. I don't do it myself, really, but I probably should.
I think positive affirmations are great. They're just, we are, if we're electromagnetic and we're magnets, what are we emanating? So it's one thing to say it, it's actually to really be it. And I've really been sitting with like the word beloved, to be loved, well, love is a state, and um, how am I being love rather than seeking it? How I think love is evoked rather than I get it from someone so they can take it from me, or I give it to someone and I can take it back. And I truly believe that we come from love, and we will return to it, and we get to have that experience here if we if we can do the work. So affirmations, affirmations are great, but I think that again it comes to embodiment, right? It comes to that which is why I think talking therapy is great. I'm not talking therapy down, but it's a bit like researching. If I can spend all day long researching all sorts of things, and unless I really integrate or embody that information, and it makes a difference in how I live or how I experience life, then it is just more information. And that has really been the difference for me, because I had talking therapy for many years in the past, and the difference has been the somatic part to the nervous system part to the healing.
Thanks for that. Hippie Shake 29, nice to see you.
So smooth.
Sea Lightning said something that got me thinking while you were talking. He said, only two flat earthers in the world do flat earth activism, you, Trinity, and Mikey Smith, horizontally opposed. I'm not sure that's true. Well, no, that's not true. There's a guy I follow on Facebook, American guy, I forget his name right now, but he goes to a shopping center at least once a month, maybe 3 times a month, I'm not sure. And he does good work. He's got like many of the proofs printed and laminated on cards, and he's got a table that he puts out with a cover and everything, and he'll tell people stories and point to that, which is fantastic. I think to have the advantage of imagery tells 1,000 words that you don't need to when trying to explain things to people who've never seen this before. But and there are others that, of course,
we're probably... Sarah, we know, are going out.
Yeah.
They might do quietly, but they are out many weekends, sometimes just with music playing, and
they'll go in the street and play through the music and put a bit of chemtrail stuff down or other truther stuff down, and then they've joined me a few times on the street. So,
and then there was, is it Tommy? Is it Tommy? I don't know if he does it anymore.
That flat fellow.
Yeah, he did it. Yeah, I'm not sure if they're still doing it.
Yeah, I honestly can't say whether they're still doing it, but I expected they're still doing something. Yeah, I think there's a real value in doing street work. Will I always do street work? I don't know about that, but most of us are all of the view that if you've got this potent information, you should share it. And if mankind is to wake up in its full time, in its good time, then this is meant to be. It feels, in a way, it feels right, doesn't it? So it's meant to be, like Andrew was saying, we each have our own journey, and for some, it is to be that kind of person blowing the whistle, the trumpet, and saying, "Hey, there's something to see here." So I'm for that. It
Um,
is interesting. It is interesting how um, powerfully it seems that no surprise, and it's no skin off my nose, but how powerfully the flat Earth community has been sort of segmented and diluted, um, maybe controlled to an extent, and steered and pushed along certain avenues and so on, because it's an important thing. So you'd expect there to be some kind of control placed upon it, but surely all of it always comes back to you. Why would this happen? Why would this be done? And no matter where the kind of game has got its actors, whether it be in junior school, in the hospital, in your science class, in TV, and truther channels, etc., doesn't really matter, because it was always about distracting you and diverting you from finding your true north.
yeah, I think activism is obviously a calling, but I think too, if you're not, if you're using as a bypass and to actually do the work on yourself, and it's not for me to say if you are or aren't. That's something you have to be curious about.
Well,
Can I just
okay, yeah,
finish? Again, it comes back to that. If the information you're taking in or giving out doesn't mean that your life is better as a consequence,
yeah,
or that you're feeling like there is growth going on in your life, then it it can often be that you feel have the feeling that you need to save someone and instead of saving yourself. So uh, I think again you need to have that balance. Um, because as you know, with activism, when you've done it, sometimes it's a lot of energy out.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not for everyone, and it's not always going to be for me, because yeah, it is a lot of energy out, and it, I know that there's only so much that. I mean, look at the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're out every weekend in almost every shopping precinct in the world, and they're still only, fairly modest in number. Um, Obviously, there's empirical stuff you can measure with regards to the way that water works, and we're not moving, etc., etc. But it is, uh, you know, it is something that, yeah, it's not, I think there was this desire, I suppose, to see everybody awaken. And what I wanted to say to you just now is that about bypassing is that when we build a bypass, it's normally because there's something else under construction. So no foul in having a bypass. We all have bypass, but are we constructing the new way, which is away from the stricture or the system?
Well, well, what I would say about that is very, very Neptune Pisces. It's like it can be because we can have escapism in needing to know and needing information too. So, that as you can have rabbit hole after rabbit hole and information after information and new information, and the more you know, the more you don't know, and the seeking, and that can be a way of escaping actually being with what's present. And I can, I can talk about that where, it's so what's in my body, what is present, is sometimes uncomfortable, and I don't want to feel it, or that sense of, of especially at the moment, actually the Pisces energy is very boundaryless. So it's like, that uncertainty, that, and then of course our mind, again, being hyper vigilant, is kind of seeking some containment. It's seeking some answer. It's seeking some knowing. Mind does not like to not know. Um, its mechanism to think and know and be one step ahead, figuring it out, means that you be safe. And so, yeah, I think, it's, again, it's not, having awareness and knowledge is not bad. It's that knowledge and awareness is only knowledge and awareness if it's not integrated, or it's not being used for betterment.
That's it. Because if all I ever do is fight on Downing Street to, uh, you know, hear what we're saying, we know you're lying. Of course, they know they're lying. It's a great big Ponzi scheme, and this Ponzi scheme designed at the soul level, the cellular level. It's like it's beyond probably what I can imagine, deep into the kind of esoteric about what's going on here. It is wild and probably weird. And if we had to see what's behind the curtain, our toes would curl and our eyes would probably freeze over. So I don't know that we necessarily need to see that, but to know that that's obviously, the scope of it, and it's so easy to know. When you know this, it's so easy to know that cowboys like Kennedy Jr. are only going to let people down, or lead people down the garden path. But I just, before I lose this thought, I wanted to say to Nathan, Squirrel Sniper, who's just been told that his farm cottage that he's rented for the last 5 years is off the rental market to be given to the new work hands that will be arriving to work on the farm estate. Sorry about that, bro. But you know what? We had a situation now where this house we're in at the moment, been here a month and a half, so it's pretty comfortable. And we sort of made a decision, or I made a decision. We made a decision that led to us
Making another decision.
yeah, which meant that we missed out on an opportunity to have stayed in this house 3 more months. Now, that wouldn't have been an unbroken 3 months. There would have been like little intervals, maybe a week here and a week there, where we couldn't be in this house. But we would have been in this house, which, it's comfortable, lovely dogs, blah, blah, blah. But instead, we've taken, this other option, which is less comfortable and has more risks associated with it. But just today, for example, so
or more unknowns rather than
yeah. And so today, I discovered that there's going to be a trampoline there, and this is the next month. There's going to be a trampoline there, which is so awesome, for example. So for Zizi particularly. So there's a tennis court here, but he's not that interested in tennis court, and I don't really care too much. So it's, I'd rather have the trampoline over the tennis court. So, and it might mean other inconveniences over the course of the next 3 months that we haven't, yet to, or it might mean.
Or you see, this is this is a perfect example. It might mean, so the mind is already trying to project inconveniences rather than possibilities. And really, for me, the expansive part, which is very, very, very threatening to my ego, who wants certainty, and it doesn't matter if it's the cage of inconveniences or bad things happening. It just wants to know, because that way it thinks it's in control. But actually, when we are able to step out that cage,
Yeah.
then there's possibilities. And actually, when I am calling in the possibilities of expansion, possibilities of whatever my heart truly desires, those things are available. But and so this is what I say to Squirrel: if you can sit with whatever it feels, the fear, the anger, the resentment, whatever it is that you guys feel about this decision being made, and then also sit with the possibility that what this could bring you, well, it's beyond your imagination, but what it could bring you could be the best thing, the fresh start. In fact, it's so on point because actually this Pisces energy is clearing out, and we're going to be moving into Aries. Got lots of Aries energy coming. It means there's going to be lots of forward movement. But this is the whole point, is that we're expansive beings. We're not limited beings. That's the whole point.
And if I may, that this is really hard to take on board sometimes, but that things are not happening to you. This is not my phrase.
Happening for you.
They're happening for you. And so with the advent of insurances and health and safety and so on, we've sterilized our world such that there's so little risk, and so we become risk averse, and we become very
Well, the mind wants
settled.
comfortable.
Yeah.
The mind wants comfortable.
Yeah.
Comfortable is safe. Certain is
Yeah.
safe. Yeah.
But look at poor Elon Musk. If his parents hadn't, fled South Africa, the world wouldn't have its, richest and smartest man, which is obviously a load of crap. You don't believe that, hopefully. But yeah, no, I think, yeah, as Squirrel says, it's only been a few hours. But you know what, my friend, when you go onto a work site and you fell a couple of trees, there's squirrels that are going to come out of those trees and go, "Hey, you just took my house," and you'd be like, "Dude, there's another cool tree just over there." So
And I don't
you'll be good.
I don't think bypass the fact that you feel anything. If you feel sad or you feel angry or you feel afraid, feel it. Feel it. That's the point.
Yeah.
Feel it. Be in flow of it, and then know that a solution is going to come. And that's the law of nature. Is there's always remedy. Always, always. It's us that our mind goes into that panic state depending on our own blueprints. And we all have money blueprints that our experience of that when we were children. In fact, it goes right back to like uh, when we are conceived, the frequency of that sperm and egg that comes together, it's already carrying information from our parents and in the generations before, and whatever they were carrying, we then carry, and it plays out for us. And I know that's going super deep, but the point is that this is the human experience. This thing is happening. Life has happened.
Yeah.
You're in the middle of a storm.
Yeah.
You've got to be with the storm.
And how you sail the ship in that storm is kind of up to you based on your previous experience.
But knowing that the storm is
it will pass. It will pass.
Exactly.
But exactly, it will pass. The storm will end. It might be 2 days long. It might be a long 3-day storm, something like that. But eventually, exhausted, you can crawl out the end of it going, "Damn, I survived that storm." However, there are ways for you to kind of try and sail around the storm, and then you hit bandits over there because you went too close to this land. And a thought came to my mind about how one option a guy could say, particularly in the truth community, is to go, "Hey, look, it's outside of the terms of your lease. You can just just like lodge there, or just refuse to go or whatever." But it's a great example, and not that I'm suggesting that you would have done this or would do this, but if you take that angle, then this is me taking that angle, I would be like fretting about, okay, there's people going to come knocking on the door. They're going to be hounding me.
I have a
I
different
can't
view.
leave.
I have
Let me just finish this analogy. I have now for the next 3, 4, 5 months, maybe if I can stretch it that long, I have a battle on my hands that I'm going to put all my energy, my God energy, into this battle. When you could have taken that energy and put it into a new project that was already yielding fruit by the time the 5 months came up.
the I have this.
That's pretty good. I think
yeah,
I think
yeah,
I think that's
yes,
pretty good. I'd give you
absolutely.
like,
Well, that's been our toughest lesson, right? This
yeah,
whole like I
yeah.
need to fight the system, and I'm going to show them, and I'm going to be free. Well, you're not because you're fighting it, so you're not free. But for me,
And in fear, like,
yeah,
driving without a license and insurance and so on, and that I'm going to get yanked with my family in the car, my little boy,
thinking about it all the time,
thinking about every time you go to the
not
supermarket,
enjoying yourself.
like not
So,
really wanting to
so
use the car so much.
I truly now believe that who I'm being is what I'm going to experience. And I believe that consciousness, the universe, God, is neutral. There is no good, bad. Um, it's just neutral. And whatever you are being or whatever you believe is what you're going to attract into your life. And and if I'm playing the victim or I'm playing the you're going to fight you, then you're going to get more fights. If you are in and you can't fake this. This has to really be something that you start to do. This is where the work is. It's like I want to be love, or I want to receive um joy or expansion, or I want, this example of it is like is this morning we put the music on, we put 80s music on because that's our thing, and Zizi's kind of neutral to it, and I just put it on and we were just dancing, and we were the most free that we probably ever are, because we just were in present joy, and that's what will meet us. I'm wanting to bring that into my life, that expansion, that positivity. And again, it's not about faking it. I have to be present with it. Doesn't mean if you're present with fear, you're going to put in more fear. I think it's when we hold on to it that we then are attracting that, and or certainly we're creating, or life is appearing from that place, or we react to things from that place rather than we're responding to life, or we're letting life move through us. That doesn't mean you don't take action, doesn't mean you just sit there and let it all happen. It means that you take inspired action from a place of much more stillness and listening, because the answers and the solutions are there, and they will come to you when there is less of this loud mind noise going on. And it takes that deep work, it takes commitment. It's not for the faint-hearted. But I truly believe that people who have taken these steps in this journey, like in terms of the truth community, it's like they want that. We're all trying to figure out what it is. And for me, it's like you don't actually need to figure it out. It's like there's like a return that needs rather than a doing.
I don't know, like if you think about the average person on Earth today, they'd be like, okay, so some stuff they're kind of complacent to an extent, but some stuff needs to change. Whereas in the truth community, it's like that thing really, really, really has to change. And that's always like out there. It's always that thing is out there that has to change. And that's, I think, where we in the truth community are so aware of so much out there that needs to change that we can often negate the inner journey. And I really feel that
a little bit of it's a bypass, and it's a victim. even though
Yeah.
you're the angry
Yeah.
victim, you're still the victim,
Yeah,
right?
because flat earthers, if we were honest, from a flat earther perspective, the people that see that are not, on average, the most like, Zen, spiritual kind of guru type, not, I mean, Santos would be like, you'd imagine Santos is like the head guru of flat earth in a way, and people go, wow, you guys have really got your shit together.
It makes me think of that. I don't know if you haven't seen it, you can go onto YouTube and watch it. Just as a really good example of a whole lot of there's I don't know if it's a charity or a movement or where a woman is running something in the prisons in the US. I don't know what state, and basically she does this program called Step into the Circle, and she gets all these prisoners to stand in a circle, and she stands in the middle and she starts calling out, if you have ever felt, or if you were from a family that struggled financially, or if you were ever shamed, or if you were ever not heard, or if you were ever whatever it is, she names a few, and how these prisoners all end up stepping into the circle. What it did do, obviously, it made the guys realize, wow, we're not a lot different from each other, but also just was a really profound depiction of, all of us have had experiences that means that we have had to learn behaviors and mechanisms um, to be in the world, but also that the world outside then had to be something we had to survive rather than live. So that kind of makes me think of that is out there. Another example is, it's no different in a relationship. There's the two of us, and it's always the partner's always to blame when you're having an argument. It's like, it's always that, you did this, you did that, or you're not being this enough for me, or whatever. And there's, in conscious relationships, it's about, or actually, what am I bringing, one, in terms of my past, and my blueprint of what relationships and love and intimacy means, but what am I fulfilling for myself, or am I being love, or being romance to myself, or being intimate with myself before I expect that from the outside? Am I being it first? It doesn't mean that you don't then want to have union and connection and experience and with the outside. And it's the same in the bigger picture with the world. What is our relationship with life in the world? It's often from a wounded space, and that's the return. That's the coming home. That's the wholeness, the returning to love.
Love, beloved. Boston Ray, nice to see you. And he has dropped a new track the other day, and it's good. So I guess we'll take your word on that, my friend. Thanks for that, and thanks for doing that birthday song for me a few years ago. In fact, it must be 2 years ago.
It is 2 years ago.
It's 2 days until my birthday.
Just for some people who wished Dave happy birthday on Facebook the other day, when we set his Facebook account up,
We didn't put the right
we didn't
birthday.
put exactly the right birthday. So it's not far off, and he got a few birthday wishes. It's Sunday. Sunday's his birthday. And yes, it's been 2 years since Brian Stavely did the
you miss him.
yeah.
Yeah, Bass Ackwood says it's in a small town where everyone knows each other, and you've already explained to the local sheriff why there's no license plate, then it's more peaceful. Yeah, I guess if they're not like, a-holes. But we live in strange times.
This is not about, we're not saying, that sort of taking that they're doing the sovereignty work in terms of, how you're in the, what's the word for that equity law, or I don't know, the contract law, like how you know, you find ways to do that in a way that is more true, or so it's not
Robust.
so. And I have great respect for the pioneers in that area, some of which we have dipped our toe into a little bit, some in some areas a lot, and still feel like there's work for us to do there. So it's not about that. But I remember listening to, I think it's Sovereign Way, forgotten what the guy's name, I think his name's Greg. And he was like, you can do all the paperwork in all that paperwork, but if you're still sitting with from the place that you're coming from is fear, and Dave and I are hands up, it's that's something that we have had to be with, is our and it's not surprising. We one maybe our parental authoritarian wounds, and then religion and society and schooling. It's not surprising that we carry wounds around authority. So it's about that's just as important as the paperwork, and it comes back to the same thing. It's not just the material; it's the energetic, it's the emotional, and the
Well, and imagine having to go, like you've just been handed a penalty for something, and it's going to cost you like 3 or 4 days, maybe 2 weeks of the extra bit of pay the spare bit of pay that you might have. Because obviously the first bit of pay goes to tax and to rent and to food and debate the really, really basic stuff. And then there's maybe a little bit left at the end of that. And I know that there's been times when the penalty is the equivalent of months of spare money. That little bit that you can save at the end of the week or the end of the month. It's going to take you a month to kind of make that back, for just for a minor kind of misdemeanor of some sort. But
you know what too is that's happened to us, and we've always found the solution. And sometimes meant we've had to, ask or for help or whatever, but we've always found the solution.
Yeah.
And I think that's got to be like a really big message, is that this life wants us to find the solution. And there always is one, and multiple, actually. There's multiple possibilities of what that solution can be.
Well, yeah. We are creators, and we can create our own like maelstrom, and we can also create calm, and I guess that's my own path. And maybe this year, maybe trying to find that calm, that stillness, that equanimity, while still keeping an eye on all the shenanigans of the world order, and all the exciting things that are coming down the pipeline in Shawshank Prison.
Dave has Mercury and Venus, but he has Mercury in Aquarius, so he is, that is makes
Well,
sense.
I read a lot of people with both similar kind of thing. Yeah. Squirrel says that all photos show 6 in the car, yet AI says 4. This is to do with a Mandela effect on the number of people in the car with JFK when they pretended to assassinate him.
Have they released those?
Isn't that funny, isn't it? I don't know that they have, and I suspect when they do, it will feel like a pyrrhic, a hollow, release that there is some information about things that were not made public, about certain people knowing certain things, but not to the extent, it's like one layer up the pyramid and not any higher in terms of the level of
Well, I mean, I don't know, but
perception.
normally these things are so redacted that,
These are the same people that are not telling us that the moon landings were faked. The International Space Station is done in a swimming pool. Um, you know, we've never sent Voyager out beyond the Milky Way. That's has to be known by the very top people. You know, there are so many things that they're not, aside from more current things. There's so many things I don't. It should have been, and it's like, oh, they're dragging their heels and getting this stuff out. But I think they will continue to play that drag, they kick the can down the
well,
road,
and
give us a little bit, drag it out over years. But in the years that follow, people will lose interest, will wane in it. Why? Because people have got far more important things to be worried about. Like when I went out to we went to South Africa in 2021 and wanted to go onto the streets telling people not to follow, all the guidance and stuff. Um, my friends were saying to me out there, saying, these black guys out here, they got more important things to worry about than this COVID. Their lives are far more like, in survival than that they can worry about something like this. Now they did, I think, they were concerned by it, and they were propagandized by it. But it is true that I think the world in 1905 was an exceptionally different place than it was in by 1915, 1920. The ravages of World War One and then two must have altered, and none of us alive can remember it, but it must have altered the status quo in the way that us adults know that 2020 and 2021 lockdowns altered the status quo, altered humanity, um, and and in the same way we forget and people just go on and make a new life for themselves after the fact of World War One, COVID, or whatever. So the world would have been a very, very different place. We would not recognize it, and the freedoms people had, and so on, would have been something amazing to behold, I'm sure. Um, yeah. I was wondering if anybody wanted to. We didn't put a link in the chat, did we?
I mean, I can't get it to
I don't
you.
know if anybody wants to join us for a few minutes to have a little chin wag. Dave Murphy said in a comment the other day that he sorry to have missed it. So if he was around today, then of course you could join us for a chat, Dave. I I know you were on with Bro Sanchez 2 days ago or 3 days ago. I don't know, but I haven't seen it. And then I see that Bro was making a kind of video. I watched 5 minutes of it. I didn't actually
Well, I
get
think
the
it was
gist
more
of
about the
it.
questions of doing collaboration, but
Uh, so maybe you
yeah.
want to talk about that. Um, Guys, so I did a fairly succinct, I felt, nice video walking in the field 2 days ago now, and I had wanted to share my thoughts about. I lost the video, and I want to share my thoughts about the elephant in the room at the moment, which is, the number of high-profile um, people who have somehow found their way from a non-moving level, flat body of water, Earth, to a globe. And the latest in that line of casualties was Paul on the plane, and I think his surname is Lindbergh. Paul Lindbergh. Now, the what I wanted to say in my video, which I thought you might find interesting if you haven't already thought about this yourself, is that in the very early days of Flat Earth, there was a meetup in Oxford in 2016. I was watching with interest, and I said to Andrew, maybe I should go. And then I chickened out of it. And I wasn't sure whether this was going to be like some kind of gathering, so intelligence gathering, blah blah blah. I wasn't sure I could trust it. This is 2016. I'm still, fairly new to things. But Patricia Steer comes out for that, and then a year or so later, I think it must have been the very beginning of 2018. It wasn't 2017. No, 2018, I think. We have the first English Flat Earth conference. And Paul Lindbergh actually came there, he from America. Paul on the plane, nice fellow. Had lots of business cards to hand out, I remember. We chatted a little bit, nothing too deep, but certainly more conversation than with Robbie Davison, who also came out to that same conference. He was a bit more aloof, didn't quite have that feel of someone who's just gone through the horror show of realizing that their whole world is a deception. But everybody processes these things in their own way, and I don't want to jump to conclusions. But here we are, that the first three Americans to come out to the UK, as far as I'm aware of, and certainly in the sort of high-profile social media space. So those three, which they've all jumped ship. So that's more than a coincidence, right? Then add to that, obviously, the first one to domino to fall, which was Jaron, and he was the next American out to Europe, although it wasn't the UK festival. It was one that was held in Holland in 2019.
Mm.
Wait a minute, Mark Sargent must have come out just before that, because he was at Kidderminster.
Mm.
So Mark Sargent came out, but yeah, So keep it short, Mark Sargent comes out, and then Karen B and Jaron go to the Amsterdam event. So out of the 7 Americans that have, as far as I know, traveled out into Europe for Flat Earth, 4 of them have jumped ship. Is that right? Yeah, and it leaves Mark, Karen. Who else? Oh, Dave Weiss, of course. Sorry, there's Dave Weiss, who's come out later now, this last year.
I mean, if I could just say, Dave and I have spoken about this a lot, and I try and always take the perspective of what's really going on and try not to make it mean too much. But and I think that often things can be both. Like, it's a bit like saying the outside is not doing anything wrong. It's only all in your world. No, that's not true. What can I be responsible for? What can I see how I'm showing up in the world, or how the world's appearing to me, and then have a boundary or whatever with whatever the thing is that I'm interplaying with. So it could be both, is what I'm saying. And so I'm not saying that what Dave's saying, that it's a bit fishy or suspicious, or there is something more there, is not true. But I also think that we're at such an interesting stage with authenticity and really being able to be with the parts of us that are not in alignment. And so I have to be curious about what that means for these individuals. And it's also like, what do we make it mean that they've made a decision? What I do think is interesting for me is it's like the oscillation. You know, it's either one or the other, and there aren't like so many other possibilities that this observation has allowed, rather than it has to be flat Earth, which, by the way, I think is loaded with psyop, and or it has to be the globe. That there is you know, there is infinite possibilities of other things it could be. And Dave and I have spoken about this often, about, you know, the energetic or the toroidal fields, or the or perhaps even an infinite plane. That those ideas become, you know, they're there. They can be on the table with this all, instead of it just being the oscillation between one or the other.
Yeah. Well, I think we have to be humble and in the not knowing.
Well, we know what
But
we're fairly comfortable with what it isn't. It's the same with, I'm fairly comfortable with knowing now, having done the work, of all the things that I believed I was, that I'm not them. But I'm also mindful. I don't want to now go, oh, now I'm this, because that's what the mind likes. It likes a new box. And I think this is what happens is we had, I'm a glober, now I'm a flat earther. Now we're in a new box. And all this information is, I must hold tight that that's what I know, instead of, are there some other possibilities? And if anything, this observation opened up those possibilities. It's like, okay, so it's not that we can, but that we need to now swing to, it has to be this again. And for me, it's all materialism, isn't it? It's like, no, it's a globe, now it's a flat earth, that's just, you know, this flat thing. So I think it's about being able to go, okay, what does that allow me, but also what's going on for me? You know, is there feelings of betrayal? Is there feelings of people who have not been in standing in their the authenticity, that have perhaps been out of alignment in terms of the, you know, is there something more sinister? It's all possible.
well, imagine being like a RFK Jr. supporter, and he's gonna lead people down the garden path, and the same with Trump, and Del Bigtree.
Well, he's already Peggy Hall was talking about, you know, telling people that because there's supposedly a measles outburst, that people need to have their children need to have their MMR, and you know,
The mother apparently, well, the mother of this child said that picture was taken when he had like COVID, so like post V possibly or something, but it wasn't the measles. Yeah. Anyway, the point is they're just feeding people more horse poop. And I think that if anything, it's about learning discernment and realizing that
yes,
these little parties are always going to have little cocktail waitresses who are, going to entertain you and keep you kind of in that limited field, and that's not to say that they're doing it because they were paid to do it. I've said this for years.
But also, and it's the same with.
But although I do think 4 people out of those 7 just all of a sudden dropping off onto a globe. That's
but
too,
I think what this could also bring up is that, and it's the same with, even though we have this new crew in government in the US. I mean, Dave and I laugh. It's like he's been set up as like not just the government for the US, like everybody seems to be hanging on to his last word, but that we're once again, because they're saying things that we want to hear, or even don't want to hear, but that we're giving our power and our energy to it.
That there's an office that is there to solve and serve and blah blah blah.
Actually, it's quite
gives it gravitas.
Exactly, and really, this is about being our own masters, and it's not this is not about, it's not an anti-system message. You know, we often talk about, you know, we could not live in a world that didn't have systems, and I mean, just an airport alone. If you drive through an airport, all the mechanics that have to go on to have that airport running and
Smoothly,
everything be
yeah.
on time and safe and so it's not about like going, oh, we'll just scrap it all and do it up. No, but it is about us, you know, coming back to ourselves and realizing that we are way more powerful. And I don't mean powerful as I'm powerful, I'm going to bang you over the head. No, powerful as in who we are, that we're not just these insignificant beings. And as far as I know, that was the message of Flat Earth, right?
That was the message of message of Flat Earth, but also I was going to say the message of religion is that you're not that important. That's what I believe anyway, having come through all of the religion thing. But I think that we are important. Speaking of gravitas, I see Sven P is in the chat. He is the guy who actually coined the term the Trinities. I think he gave us that name in the first week of the Globe Light tour that we were on anyway. It's been a long time, Sven, although obviously he's got a channel. If you want to go and check out his stuff, he's still doing some on the street reporting. And
talking about Oxford, when you took all that video, which you've now lost, wow, we were just, you know, I've been to Oxford briefly, but never really walked around and looked at the buildings. And we went into some of the colleges, and one in particular was Trinity College. Actually, interesting enough.
Oh yeah, we snuck in there, and I got all this footage. Lost.
And the chapel in there,
oh my gosh,
I've never seen
wow.
the detail.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Wow. And that these buildings
1675, 1650, something like that, and they're all meant to be for like some you know, few kids. Oh, there's 10,000 people here
but
in the town.
Many of them, and we're like, why has this little place got so much of that building still there?
So this lady told me a story. You might find this interesting, Sven. This lady told me a story that this lady we met on the bus. That the story goes that Adolf Hitler really liked Oxford, had a fondness for Oxford, the town, the city. And so he ordered the Luftwaffe to avoid bombing Oxford, right? So that sounds like poppycock. That's it. So I explained to the lady quickly before she ran off.
Very quickly.
that it's far more likely that just like with Switzerland, you go, okay, look, we can't have the whole, we can't we can't lose all of our jewels on this. What we need to do is have a safe place where we can leave the expensive stuff and the stuff that's expendable, just like they did with Pearl Harbor. We'll leave that in the harbor. And that's what I think the lady has even said to me. Yes, they happen to have saved so many paintings and things like that that just happened to be in Oxford. Really? So they knew that Hitler wasn't going to target Oxford because how? They were talking to him about it. So, you know, this is why Oxford is a fascinating conglomeration of unbelievably architected buildings, all well designed and so on. Was it a grid of some sort, a power system of some sort? Certainly, there's lots of evidence of antiquitech, lots of evidence of downstairs, underground, lots of, you know, well below the ground stuff.
But each college has its own little chapel, and just certainly
the one at Trinity College.
Oh my goodness me, yes. the woodwork and the paintings on the ceilings, and it was just, it blew my mind. And yeah, it's an interesting, really interesting place because it's like it's not just one, it's not just one little place like that. There's so many that we didn't even get a chance to
pictures, photos, with a few photos I remember seeing with you know, all these exquisite buildings, maybe 150, 200 years ago, maybe not quite that long ago, but and there's like one couple and a buggy, and then this massive building is like, really, where's the people? Where are the people to justify that? So yeah, that that was pretty cool to see that. But you know, again, I'd love to know how that all fits together. But something might happen before then, you know, something. Well, the ends of our lives might come quite naturally, even if it's 100 years old that you live to. Why the ends of our lives will come, and or the like events that really are seismic, because you know COVID-19 there was a warm up. The pandemic thing was a warm up to something that's coming. And so I've said this before, and I'll say it again. When the flood comes, metaphorically speaking, when the flood comes, where will you be? You know, and are you going to be like glued to your, you know, screen of, you know, trying to, you know, get accountability for this system when how deaf have they been to all of the harm that the needles of 2021 have caused? So much harm, and yet they're able to you know negate that. But one child, you know, dies of an overdose of a particular thing that they're trying to get rid of, the entire world knows about it. But now, you know, people are dying in their thousands and thousands over the odds, over the numbers. So
Yeah, they are, my love. But you know what? When you see how people are, there's so many people in pain in the world in so many ways. You know, I happen to, when I'm doing that escapism that yes, I do on Instagram, you know, I come across certain pages, and one of them is called the Fentanyl Project. And you know, it's the epidemic in one particular state, this one project that's taken, you know, people with that addiction, which, by the way, I believe addiction is a solution to a problem, and that problem is pain, pain on such a deep level, and they are self-medicating to try and get away from the pain. I know obviously we deem it as dirty and bad, and you know, and yet my scrolling on Instagram is perfectly acceptable. Yes, it's not as damaging, of course. But yeah, there is just so much pain. I mean, that, you know, when we were working with the homeless in South Africa, which we hope to be able to do more of, um, you know, most of them are in so much pain. Um, and that's, you know, that's where they've ended up. So yes, although this dreadful thing has happened in the last 4 years, for me, what it should have woken up in all of us is this incredible experience we get to have, and how all the ways we've given that away. And I'd like to say it's been robbed for us, but the moment I do that, I make us all victims, and we're not. We're not. We all actually have the opportunity and the free will to take the invitation, albeit incredibly uncomfortable and courageous and hard work. We have that opportunity to step into our power, and you know, and no longer give it away um, to something on the outside. Um, and that's not saying that it's easy, and it's not saying that we don't have to face our own parts that we've disowned, or the pain that sits there in our bodies, which I truly believe is where dis-ease is stems from for all of us. But yeah, you know, there is so much pain in the world, and as a consequence, you know, anger and rage, and therefore, you know, reaction and all those things.
yeah, yeah, expectations. And it's easier said,
Projections.
yeah, and it's easier said than done. Because, you know, and if someone said this to me when I was feeling like, oh, bollocks, I wouldn't necessarily be like that receiving of it. However, these challenges are more than likely because of something that you need to overcome or face. So it's almost like we can see certain challenges as a gift, or we can see all challenges as a gift. Easy for me to say, like,
there are lessons. It doesn't
yeah,
always feel like that.
yeah, you just had a leg amputated or whatever. It's like that does not feel like a gift, Dave. Well, maybe it's because of the reason that happened was because of something before that, more likely. And therefore it's that thing that you need to be working on. Not obviously you need to learn to walk with one leg now and the crutch, but it's more important that you take this pause that you've been given, this change, and do something.
I just remember when I entered into when I made the real commitment to step into this healing, that for the longest time I wanted someone it to be someone's fault. I wanted someone to, I'm going to say pay for it, but I wanted someone to be responsible for it. I want someone to come and save me. I wanted someone to at least say, yes, I acknowledge that they'd done it. And the moment I realized that wasn't going to happen, that was actually when I had to face a lot more things, because it was my way of stopping myself from actually being responsible for what was there for me. There's that phrase, it's not my fault, but now it's my responsibility. And I truly believe that that is where you begin the journey home and to freedom. But when we were waiting for someone to acknowledge or change or on the outside, then we remain the victim to our circumstances. And that has been the most profound shift for me. Don't get me wrong, there's some days that I slip back into that, it's someone else's fault and it's not my fault. And luckily I'm able to have a reflection with Dave or with a coach, or and able to come back to that, how can I be with those parts. To go back to my Instagram post that I wrote the other day, it was healing happens in safety, and I think that for us to be able to take that journey, we have to feel, and that's for the masculine and the feminine differently, but we have to feel like we can be in safe spaces to allow ourselves to be seen, and for us to be in a container that feels like we're accepted, which I think is what Flat Earth gave the community, gave people. It gave them that feeling of acceptance and of containment.
It still does, I think.
It still does, but it's a little fractured, and that's actually a big part of the Pisces or the Neptune thing is that we aren't those fractured cells, that actually we are whole. It's just us coming back into that.
You might have heard Martin Luther say that last week when he popped on with Cheryl, that he was going to a flat earth, I think it was mainly flat earth event in Venice.
Italy, yeah.
And that's been cancelled due to Patricia Steer no longer being able to attend because she can't fly around the globe. But I've got a few things up my sleeve. One is that we've got a plan to do a hangout in Norfolk on the 17th of next month. Of April.
Yeah, it is the day before Good Friday, so the next day would be a public holiday for people in the UK.
There'll be there's a local pub in Norfolk. I will provide details to anyone who asks of the venue. It'll just be a hangout with some
people. A social event.
So that's that. The Alex Michael thing I mentioned the other day is, I think, going to be based on a invite sort of only, so you'll probably have to be a mate of Alex Michael or something, or hit me up for a conversation about that. And that's still scheduled for the end of September. And then I'm talking to my mate Dan out in Portugal about putting on a like a retreat for people wanting to, go that little bit further than just a few nights on the lash at a festival type thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
That'll be October, early October.
I remember
So-
when the early days of flat Earth, I would say today, Dave, okay, the Earth is flat, now what? And it just feels like, we're still in that journey of like, what does that mean? What does that really mean to me on a personal level? And so this retreat is about us being able to explore, be curious. We'll hopefully put on, we'll have certain people there who it will be an opportunity to
level up.
but also like fill the cup, really fill the cup, or do some inner exploration and, learn some stuff too.
Well, Nora, No One's Flower, is commenting on how beautiful Oxford is. Yes, it certainly is, Nora. And Nora's another one from the Globe Light Tour of 2019. And of course, you went on to do some amazing stuff with the COVID Light Tour. I think we were on the land in Portugal, I think, around the time eventually that people started getting some kind of activism going on that. But you can see like all of that effort, good effort, and people today are still unable to get a hearing, or because they don't. It doesn't matter how loud you shout. In fact, the louder you shout, the more likely they're going to want to drown you out. So we are to do work on alerting people, and I see Mikey Smith has dropped in, and he's someone who does some street activism as well. And there's all other sorts of ways that people are out there doing their thing, whether it's dropping into chat rooms or whatever. So, but we have to do this inner work. I keep saying it. We have to do this inner work. And, maybe it's because I need to do it as much as anybody else, if not more than anyone else. But having met so many flat earthers, I think that we've been given the gift of the sight for some reason. And we should not, if there has been entrapment designed in the flat earth movement, we should not allow ourselves to be held by that entrapment.
So I wanted to just mention this. Obviously, I know from a cosmology or point of view that there'll be a lot of discussion about what this is, in terms of sort of the logical understanding of it from a material sense, but from an astrological sense, or an energetic sense, for me, next Friday, I think next Friday is the 14th, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Next Friday, there will be an eclipse. And the eclipse will be on the full moon in Virgo. I saw Hippie Shake said she's Virgo rising. So, and I think it's at 23 degrees of Virgo. So it depends on whether you have something within that. There's like an orb, or, that it'll affect you maybe more prominently, or obviously the mutable signs. So Pisces is where the North Node is, and the South Node is in Virgo. So eclipses, from an astrological point of view, it's kind of something gets eclipsed out of your life. It's just how someone has described it to me, which I think is amazing. It does. We spoke about how it does make you think of like the moon being more this, this disc that, or this sort of hole that, opens and shuts every cycle. But that's just, discussions that Dave and I have. But the Friday there's this eclipse in Virgo, and the sun will be the moon and the sun will be at 23 degrees of Virgo, and Virgo's the energy of devotion, of service, of it can be the perfectionist. It's the embodiment. It takes all the details. It's great with details, which is very interesting because flat earthers like all the details. And then it's how do I embody that energy? But it's so anyway. The eclipse is next week. It's something that's likely to be eclipsed out of your life. You might very well be feeling that energy already. There's sort of a window that opens with that, and then 2 weeks after that there will be another eclipse in Aries, and these are all endings and beginnings, but it can often bring up lots. So that might also be what people are experiencing in their lives. We will be hopefully live again next Friday.
New location.
And perhaps you can talk a little bit more if anybody wants to about what eclipses could be in the physical sense or what they could be in the energetic sense.
Yeah, that would be.
If anybody wants to talk about that.
Yeah, moved by Nathan's mother passing away. So sorry for your loss, bro. But I guess your mother knows some amazing stuff now. Nice to see you, India. And Angela, baby. Carson, and there's someone else I want to say hello to. Sue Fanelli. Nice to see you. Yeah. Thanks for stopping by, you all. And yeah, thanks to Hippie Shake for sharing the buy me a coffee. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your support and kindness in that energy area. I know you do it for Martin and lots of other people as well, I'm sure. But I appreciate that. And appreciate you, Holistic Media, for giving us shelter. Must be a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I mean, we have been on such an incredible journey, and sometimes it's felt hellish, but actually, we believe that it's all been sort of the steps or the journey that we've had to be on. I truly believe that. We can be in resistance of it. I can make it a hell of a lot harder. But wow, it has.
Yeah, and there's Squirrel. We've met up with him half a dozen times now. Over the years, and it's just nice to touch base with someone who sees so much of what you see. And
that you can have some really expansive conversations with, because you can with Squirrel. So with Nathan, if I can just say something about loss and grieving, that I think our society doesn't really understand or allow for grieving in its fullest sense, but it can be such an incredible experience. It doesn't feel incredible. It feels incredibly painful. Dave and I have both lost a parent, and it doesn't feel good, but it at the same time has the opportunity to feel that grief has really been a portal for both of us in so many ways, losing one of our parents. And like Dave said earlier, if when something happens, it kind of opens the door to something else happening. And so I want to obviously send my love and and condolences, but also just encourage you to feel it. You know, I think if I can say anything about, you know, doing the inner work, it's just allowing ourselves to feel it, to feel it all, to feel the anger, to feel the resentment, to feel the sadness, to feel the joy, to feel the grief, to feel the fear or terror. Just feel it and allow it to flow, allow it to move through you. What we do is we end up holding on to it um,
Cause dis-ease.
and yes, and then we live from that place. So yeah, you know, the you can't have one without the other, unfortunately.
No. Nice to see you, Ryan. And that's good news, India. Holistic Media is says she started walking,
Awesome.
and we can welcome back up to North Norfolk.
Well, hopefully she can come into the pub and
Yeah, possibly the Norfolk gig that we got get together that we've got is lined up for the 17th of April. That's a bank holiday Thursday, or
no,
the
the
next day
Friday
is
is
the bank
yeah,
holiday.
it's a Good Friday and
it would be a comfortable night for people to get together. And my friend Simon, who sort of hosts an evening for fellows, flat earthers, and people on the
every
church
Thursday, is that right?
every Thursday at the same pub. So we haven't actually fixed on whether we're going to just gather at his pub or whether there would be a need for us to kind of rent a hall, not a hall, like a space, and maybe do a little chat and stuff like that. I said I was going to sleep on that a little bit, but the point is there will be a opportunity in Norfolk to get together. Although I know obviously North Norfolk and where he is, Durham, is not as close as it's got to be at least 45 minutes. Anyway,
it's an
good to hear
opportunity.
that
It's an
you're
opportunity to
walking
connect
about, and I hope that your strength goes from strength to strength. Yeah, good food and lots of love. So Heavy Shake just dropped another link for my PayPal, which of course you're welcome to support our work. We're going to be near Liverpool, and I want to continue doing this on a Friday night for now, and maybe more things in future. Certainly some more vlogging and some activism. But you know, I'm not naturally like a fighter or an arguer. I don't really like debating because I'm not really that.
He's a Libra rising. Libra risings do not like arguing.
No, so you know, so it's not my most comfortable place. You know, I don't mind talking to people in the street, but I don't know that I want to come at them from that, you know, from that angle. There's a time and a place. You know, we were walking through Oxford the other day and reminded about 2018 when I did what ended up being quite a impressive to me anyway, like outburst about the deception. And it's still on my channel, actually. Harry and Jason of the Disbury family, they filmed it, the two of them, and then it was spliced together, I think, by Robin. But you know, I would still do that, you know, in that situation. But I don't feel like I want to be in the fight like that in the street all the time, or not, you know, all the time, but you know, that at that level.
I think there's also that maybe in the beginning you really thought that this information was so important, and not that that's changed, but it was so important that people knew, and if they knew, it would, you know, it would have such a seismic shift not only in their lives but in, you know, in the world. And of course we, you know, that's that kind of that oscillation. Now we've kind of softened a little bit, and we are sort of sitting more at the, you know, it's as much as we want to be of service and help anybody that we can, it also has to be those that want it.
Yeah.
And it's not for the faint-hearted, this journey, as you will all know. And so, you know, you have to want it. And it doesn't mean you stop having those conversations, but we've also learned through this journey that not everybody wants it, and that's okay. And maybe not everybody will wake up. Not everybody needs to. It's not really for us to decide what that needs to be, but
and it's also like you don't really want to point it out, to be honest with you. So you might see it, you might go into someone's environment and go, wow, this is representative of like a state of dis-ease or clutter in your world, and so it's suggestive that inside is clutter. So it was so nice to talk to Martin Leaker the other night, and I think probably because of Cheryl being quite candid about, you know, having the opportunity for self-reflection, bumping up against each other and causing those moments to kind of take responsibility rather than to blame.
That's what life is. Life is constant mirrors,
so
whether
I
it be in
think that was,
relationships or
And
whatever.
I think, you know, because obviously I've also met Martin quite a few times. We've been to his house, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, you do see a particular thing and you know, not wanting to be judgmental, but to go, you know, that yes, you know an awful lot about Tartaria and the deceptions of this world, but what has changed about the personal inner world that was always there before you stumbled on, opened the door to this information? And I think that's true for so many of us in the flat earth community. And you know,
It goes back to what I said originally, right? It's great to have awareness and the information, but if it isn't for the betterment of ourselves first and foremost, you know, then it's just white noise. Then it's just a wasted time and energy. It has to. No, it doesn't have to. I mean, you know, it just the opportunity to integrate it, and it bring us back to who we truly are is there. And yeah, you know, but people have to want it. I know that for me, I had to get to the point that I wanted it so bad that I was willing to put in the commitment. Doesn't mean my mind doesn't sometimes tell me, no, stay here where you know, where it's familiar, that you know, this like old certain cage that you used to living in. Come here rather and lay here.
Yeah, Sven, you know, like he's saying, my true learning curve is in the within. And just in time, Heavy Shake dropped our coaching and mentoring flow desk link. If people want, she is, I know, very special. But I just want to give a shout out to Angela Baby Carson for a video that she's a lady being abused by a security guard. She filmed that and got us some profile, which is good. But yeah, Sven, I think like if you're driving in a car and drivers are doing their thing in front of you or around you and they're causing you to become angry. No, okay, that's what it is. This is not about judging that. But for the conscious observer or the observer seeking to be more conscious of their own shit, then when that comes up, yes, then how am I reflecting on why is that making me feel? But if you're pointing the finger about because he's driving like a twat, it's like, okay, but that's fine, but how it's making you feel could either be irate or like, okay, the guy is obviously not a very good driver.
I can react, and normally the reaction is a projection of whatever is being triggered.
And so these are the gifts, because it's like, okay, that's the thing I need to be thinking about is why is that kicking me in the nuts, you know, when I'm looking to be, you know, unkickable in the nuts. When, you know, bring your shit to me and you'll see that my nuts are not going to be kicked.
Yeah, I mean, again, it doesn't mean that the guy in the car wasn't driving like that, but it's like, how do I interact, or how do I respond to that?
I'm all over my hooter, you know, I'm fingers in the air, or I'm just going to let that ride, you know.
Yeah, or walk past them or drive past them and say, hey, you know, it is, you know, the word conscious, I think, is, you know, am I doing it from a place of presence, or I'm actually doing it from a place of the past? The past, I mean, the present is when you are conscious, and, you know, we are an expression of consciousness. So, you know, it's about coming back to the present. Otherwise, the past is not only affecting us in the present, but actually in the future too. And when we're always creating, always. In fact, that's the biggest manipulation, is that they manipulate our creative power.
Yeah.
So we always manipulate. I mean, we're always manifesting or creating.
Nice to see Jolly Man here, by the way. So nice to see you, mate. And Kathy Broughton. Howdy. Everyone, I assume that's like an American howdy, but I don't know. So theoretical astrophysicists have a pi particle. What is a pi particle other than more ridiculous space mysticism? Oh, mate, it is so much bollocks out there in the space thing. Hey, and I see that one of the Elon Musk candles or firecrackers blew up or something, and it's just so much theater and so much like kicking the can down the road so the believers can kind of still cling to their dream of, you know, going to space and being Star Trek or something. Oh, it's but and the game has to continue for some time yet. Oh, it's just going to be so fascinating to see. And the majority are going to be deceived. And we need to be okay. I need to be okay with that. Okay, whatever, you can be whatever you want about it. But for me, I need to be okay with that, and you know, be okay with the transit of this experience into, you know, I genuinely believe that, you know, you transit from here to something magnificent.
Or you
And
already are that. You already are that. And you know, there's that song, this could be heaven, this could be heaven, or this could be hell. And really, I think that we can have that experience here. We don't have to wait till we sort of transition to the next life.
Yeah. Because the drive is so much more enjoyable when you're not getting pissed off by every pothole or bad driver in your vicinity.
I mean, I just want to add to that. That does not mean that we don't have experiences that feel incredibly painful. That's not what I'm saying. This can just be this, you know, we just come here and it's going to be utopia, because this is a human experience, and part of that is loss and you know, the whole spectrum of feelings. So I you know, when I say that, I'm not like, oh, you should just be joyful all the time. No, that's not what this experience is.
Let's see, Kathy Broughton is in Kentucky. And yeah, I get that. How do you think? I traveled through the southern states, Oklahoma and blah, 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 you know, over to Texas and probably this way if you were on the camera. From the East Coast to the West. And so I really had a good experience of the southern hospitality and the southern twang.
How many years is it now?
1988.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a while back. But actually, and I noticed that Angela Carson is part Portuguese, and I wanted to say, you know, the Portuguese are nice people, you know. We really enjoyed that
Just couldn't
place,
speak
but we can't
Portuguese.
speak it, unfortunately, which when they can't speak English in the countryside, then you're a bit knackered.
Lots of sign language,
Yeah,
smiling
yeah,
and head shaking.
yeah, yeah, and a lot of heat. And you know what? You can't actually. They're not really meant to light a fire.
Well, that was certainly in central.
Yeah, and like because it's so hot there. But Kentucky is a pretty cool place, I think. Feels to me like one of those places that has a lot of room where people aren't rammed cheek by jowl, which is really how it should be. I think we're meant to be living these much more expansive lives, rather than these battery farmed humans, in these over tight conurbations. But maybe like who was saying it was Cheryl saying last week, we're the master of this, we're the ones who've written this, we've created this. I'm not sure. I thought about it a little bit over this weekend. I'm not sure I would go with that 100%, but I also wouldn't kick it out of the room and just say that that's very possible.
Well, when we're asleep to that, then of course, yes, we're going by what is offered. Most people say, well, what can I do about it? Or, you know, they'll say, well, this is it. There's nothing more for me to get in here. And I think that not to be true anymore. I think that there is more land beyond, and there is infinite potential for all of us. We just don't
And free
know.
energy. I do think that. I think there's ways of extracting copious amounts of energy just from the matter around us or the ether. Not my idea. Others have said that before, but yeah, we should be in a place of unlimited thing. But again, I come back to like, we've been, shacked up in Shawshank prison for centuries now. And so, maybe it's not our lot to be, for the gates to open at this point and for utopia to be offered to us all because we are now ready for that.
Starts inward, my love.
There we go.
The cage door is open. We just feel safer in the cage, and I know that's a bitter pill because it means that we have the power to change it, and we do.
Yes, we do. So something that we've never seen is an atom. Thanks for reminding me of that, jolly man. Only measured a field influence with an oscilloscope magnetic field or within an oscilloscope. Subatomic Higgs particle bosons, God particles, muons, G2Ss, the missing Newtonian matter. Yeah, it's all religious mumbo jumbo, isn't it? So yeah, yeah, it's all religious, and the same is true with the germ stuff, and well, there's just there's so little of what we know to be true biologically or physically can be taken at face value anymore. But we've known that for a while, haven't we? And Sven reminded me that Portugal was his favorite place on the Euro tour after Bordeaux. I remember you having a really good conversation with three German lads in was it the capital there in Portugal?
Lisbon.
Lisbon.
Yeah,
that was a good day. Yeah, that was a good day there. Yeah, I really enjoyed that day too. It was a nice location on the waterfront. Lots of footfall. Yeah, it was good. They had to take Andrea and Jack had to take the. Didn't you go and take the van to get a new tire or something that day? The tire, one of the tires was like
threadbare.
Threadbare. You could see the cord, all the metal cord through the tire. So we thought it was important to get that fixed that day. So that was yeah, that was epic. So yeah, just sea lightning, nice to see you. But Robbie Davidson was the last one you heard of. Who's the latest flat earther to return to the spinning water ball? There's been quite a few, but the one that I mentioned earlier right at the beginning of the stream was a guy called Paul on the Plane. Paul on the Plane came to the UK Festival Conference, the first one, with Robbie Davidson. So for the both of them to step out at the same time in very strange circumstances is in itself questionable.
Wasn't Robbie Davidson sorry, I don't know these people and I don't have the same connection that obviously Dave does. But wasn't he the guy that was running the conferences, well, was involved in the conferences in the US in the early days before Platoverfest? And that he was the one who invited
Jake Paul.
No, that's the brother,
Logan
Paul to the
Yeah, and then the next year he invited, or the year before, someone else who's well known in America. Anyway, I was a little bit sympathetic of that action because I felt like, it is a bit like what I do in the street, is that any publicity is at least getting people to talk about it in the pub, even if it's from the point of ridicule, because it's just getting that out there, and more people who see it will go, and we can't really complain too much about, oh, what are they going to see? Because if the information that we've got, a lot of it on the flat Earth models and stuff like that has been controlled, then we don't know whether what we're pushing is true or not. I mean, we obviously know that the water's level. I'm not about to do a Jared and go, well, because they saw this light in the sky, that means that water isn't level anymore, and NASA is legit. Well, that sort of thing. No, that's not happening. And if it was to be happening, then it would be because I'd had a frontal lobotomy, and one of Elon's chips planted into my skull. So, and that's also not going to be happening. Although I think shedding might be a real thing. So someone might be able to shed their chips on you. I don't know. Anyway, but was it Ryan who was saying it was snowing? I like Ohio, by the way. I've been through there, Cincinnati, and blah blah blah. But Lisbon, yes, has got lots of old world castles, and there's one called Monsanto, which is really well. It's not
Lisbon,
no, not in Lisbon itself, but in Portugal.
That's near Central. That's what
The
in
Central Portugal, yeah. Place called Monsanto. Obviously, there's an unpopular company by the same name. But the original Monsanto is in Portugal, and it's just staggeringly huge stones.
Yeah,
that giants
blown away by
giants must have moved them. Really, just we don't have equipment to move that stuff today at Monsanto. Just unbelievable, staggering size. So there's a lot of old world. We actually wonder whether Portugal isn't part of Africa more than it is part of Europe. But anyway, that's just another weird sort of how does the map really look conversation. Because we took a ferry out there during the lockdowns, and it felt weird the direction that we were traveling in terms of the way that you think based on the map where you're meant to be, meant to be.
It's just so similar to parts of Africa.
It is. And of course, Africa has got quite a lot of Portuguese, colonies or Portuguese people in it, Angola, the country that I visited in 1987, is mostly Portuguese. Anyway, we've probably run our course for tonight, time-wise, and I wanted to Alva Billy's comment. National Academy of Space Actors are so lame they haven't won a single Oscar, let alone been nominated. But Buzz Aldrin and them, they got on the star, their star on the Walk of Fame in Hollywood Boulevard. I actually walked on that in 1988 because I thought that was important or a special thing, a thing to do. You know what I mean?
You also have a photograph of yourself standing with the Twin Towers
Yeah, I must have known somehow, but there's something Twin Towers-ish, Pearl Harbor-ish coming to us, and I love it. I loved America, traveled across the country, 30 states, blah blah blah. And so, and the people were so amazing, beautiful countryside. There's all sorts of diversity there, so all good. And it's Hollywood, and I grew up watching a bit of American TV, and so it was quite special to be in America and so on and so forth. But I do feel like America is being set up big time right now for something. And maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't end up being like such a cataclysm, archaic
Well,
level thing. But
they are still astrologically having Pluto return and all that kind of thing. So that in terms of energetically, there's a lot going on there still in terms of that. So yeah, it's interesting times, very very interesting times, but interesting times for us also personally, on in all different ways.
Cool. Cool. Well, we will do this again in a week. And next time, I mean, I didn't publish this. I had actually published this in a video that I lost.
He's still
I'm still grumpy about that. So, but we will do it again next week, and we will happily invite people to come and have a chat with us.
Yeah, and so next Friday the 14th, we will do this again at the same time. Like I said, it'll be an eclipse, and
I'll be a year older.
The full moon.
Yeah.